Okay, we're going to take some time today to talk about the a lamp bracket. And here's the plans, and you can see that there are some elements of the lamp bracket that we need to discuss. There's a twisted brace right here. It's got some twists in the metal. There's a hook out here on this is the top piece. And there's a ring right there. So we need to roll that. And there are all kinds, this project is held together with manual rivets. This goes back a few years, not something that we do too much anymore other than for ornamental and decorative purposes. There's no welding in this project. Yeah, and the copyright of this book, I was just looking before I flip the camera on, and this goes back to 1929. This was out of a book called 101 Metalworking Projects by a guy named Peterson. So going back a few years. So here's the little rivets that I was talking about. I don't know if you can see those. See, some have a rounded or a domed head, and some are flat. So we're going to be using two different kinds of rivets. So how do you set those domed ones without smashing the dome is the question. That's a trick. And well, there's a special tool for that. So there's the dome right there, and you set that on your rivet, and that's how you're going to do it. Kind of like a punch, if you will, but it fits in there just like that. The flat ones are no big deal because you can just hit them square with a hammer. You can hit the head, the top head, or you can hit the back. So yeah, the problem is this does not fit inside of this ring. Right there, you can see a couple rivet heads in there. Look on your plans if these aren't, this isn't very clear. But so I'm going to use the flat ones inside the ring. So there's 3 rivet heads that are inside the ring. Everything else is flat. So yeah, for this project, we're gonna form or shape everything cold. We're not gonna heat up the furnace. We're not gonna heat any metal. And so I want to take a minute to explain something here between hot rolled metal and cold rolled metal. And this was a lesson I learned a little bit ago when I started doing this, and everybody's pieces were breaking. And what I found is that I had been delivered some cold rolled metal. So you can see that this is pretty shiny, and the edge is pretty square there. So that's a cold rolled metal. You cannot shape this without heating it. Not in the shapes that we're doing anyway. It will snap. And this is hot rolled metal. So again, if you compare the two, you can see this hot rolled metal is more of a dull finish. It's more of a black oxide finish. And the corner is rounded. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe an end view. Can you see that there? Get them to hold right in the camera. And yeah. So there's a little bit of difference there. Anyway, so don't use cold rolled metal for this project. We'll get rid of that. We want to make sure that all of our pieces are hot rolled metal, and we will be able to shape them cold. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is drill some holes, because there are about 22 holes that you need to drill for this project. Some of them you'll drill beforehand, and some of them you'll drill after. But let's get to making the pieces. I'm not going to make a whole lamp bracket, but I am going to show you how to develop some of the pieces. So you'll have to put it all together and consult your plans and all that. Or maybe you can just connect all the dots and figure it out from this video. Well, here we are at the drill press, and we're going to walk up to it and install a bit. All the holes, all the rivets and all the other holes in this project are 3/16 diameter. So there's my 3/16 bit, and that goes right here in the chuck. I don't need to leave much of it hanging out, so I'm going to go ahead and slide that up pretty far. My metal's only an 1/8 inch thick, so I'm not going to need a whole lot of bit to get through there to drill the hole. And of course, I want to tighten it with the chuck key. So here is the chuck key, and there should be 3 spots to tighten it. You can just spin it with your hand. Make sure you take that out. You don't want to turn the machine on with that in there. That'd be a bad day.
Ow.
So we'll put that aside, and now we're going to insert our metal. So here is, I put this little cross vise here on the table, and that just helps position. So as you position your material underneath the bit, you can line it up real nice. Before we drill anything, it would be awfully helpful if we made a little center mark, because this bit is pretty small and it's going to wander all over the metal, the slippery surface of the metal, if we don't create a center mark. So let's do that. We're going to head right back over to the bench, and you can lay out your locations according to the plans. Here's a center punch, and you're going to need a pretty substantial hammer. You don't want to use these little sheet metal hammers. These are not for this project. They don't center punch very well. You can't hit a punch. You can't set rivets. In fact, I'm going to use a larger forging mallet when we get to setting rivets. So here we go. I'm going to line that up on my mark. I've laid out a location from my plans, and I want one good hit. I don't want to hit this 3 or 4 times because it'll bounce, and then I'll have 3 or 4 center marks. So one good hit here. And there it is. There's my location of my hole I'm going to drill. So back to the drill press. Let's get this set up. I've installed some wood blocks here in the vise, so that'll help you get this set up nice. This little cross vise is, again, pretty handy for setting up the metal. Oh, I went too far. I got to pull that back a little bit. And we'll go right there. All right, so I've got control over it. See how that bit wants to bend? I better push that forward a little bit. There we go. So it's coming down nice and straight. Okay. Before I turn this on and drill my hole, I want to put a little bit of oil there. So I'll reach over and grab the oil can. There's my trusty oil can. It's always nice just to put a little puddle there when I'm drilling that. There you go, you can see a little bit there. Just put a little puddle there to drill, just to lubricate the top of that bit. And lastly, if there's a chip in your way or something, make sure you use a brush to knock that away. You don't want to use your finger. Those chips are really sharp and they'll cut you. They're like little razor blades. So here we go, steady pressure, just nice and gentle. Again, move the chips with a brush. Don't use your finger, especially if it's on. And there's my second hole. All right, so now I've got a little trick for you, because while we're drilling, and you're gonna have several locations where you're gonna have to install a pair of rivets. So down at the bottom here, and at the other end of the brace up here, and there's a few right here on the back that have double rivets, a pair of rivets. So a little trick for doing that is I'm going to line up my pieces. Now again, these are the correct 2 pieces, so this would be the back and the brace, or the top and the brace, whatever connection you're working on. I'm going to take my punch, I'm going to go down in one of those holes, and I'm going to drill a third hole. So there we go. So that lines up. Now I've got my center mark and I've got a location, so I did it together. And I'm going to go drill that. I'll be right back. You guys know how to use the drill press now. Okay, I'm back from the drill press, so I have my third hole. Let's go back to the first piece. Here's the first piece. And I dropped a rivet. It doesn't matter. I just grabbed a flat rivet because they're all the same size. Just some have flat heads and some have round. So if I put these together, so I'll drop that one in there. I'm not going to set it. I'm just going to lay it together. And what that'll do is that rivet will help me mark the location, or help me hold the location rather, of that first rivet. So now I can go through the second hole with my center punch and drill the fourth hole. Okay? So then what that allow me to do is put both rivets in, and I know that the locations are going to line up, because that's what a lot of students will have trouble with. A lot of people have trouble with is getting the pair of rivets to match both pieces. So getting both rivets to line up at the same time. You can get one to line up, that's not too difficult, but getting two or more to line up is quite a difficult task. All right, so I'm going to go to the drill press. There's my center punch, my center mark. I'll go to the drill press, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back from the drill press. So here was the piece I had, and here's the one that I drilled. So now I have two holes in both. So just to show you that this works, I haven't done any manipulation, so I hope these fit. I just filed off the burrs, all I did. And here is the second rivet. There's the first one. It's through both. So here's the second one. And there you go. That lines up just fine. No frustration. They fit just nice. So my pieces are lined up on the edges just as you would hope. All right, so, well, I guess we suppose we ought to go one step farther and show you how to set these. And to do that, I'm going to go over to, you could go to the anvil, or we can go over here to the vise, because every vise has a little anvil on the back of it. Put you off to the side right there. There's my vise. So these are the jaws. Do not hammer or set rivets on the jaws. But this surface, this little square area, is a vise. So I can hammer back there. So simply enough, when I set these rivets, like I said, the flat one isn't too difficult. So I'm just going to set my flat rivet on the anvil, and I'm going to hit it with my hammer. I can go this way, or I can do it the other way, and I can hit the back end of the rivet. It doesn't matter, okay? Now, when I set a round head rivet or a domed head rivet, I have to use this tool. So there's the head of the rivet, there's the dome, and this rivet looks like it's a little bit long, so I probably could file. These are pretty soft. That's why they expand. I've file or cut some of that off. But anyway, I'll go ahead and set it for you guys. There is my punch on my rivet. Again, you could use a bigger hammer than this. You can really get after these using a forging mallet. Just be careful. Once I got my thumb, that wasn't a good day right there. But so there's my two rivets set. This one needs to go down some more. It's a little bit too long. Again, I'd have to file or cut some off the back, but I believe you get the idea. So let's move on with the next part. Okay, so the next piece I'm going to make is a brace, the twist. So I'll show you how to do a twist. This is the brace, and the brace has 2 holes on each end and 1 in the middle. Well, be careful, that's not exactly the middle. So if you measure the whole piece, this is not exactly center. Consult your plans for that. But what I want to show you is that there are four twists, 4 90-degree turns that you're gonna have to make on this. So I laid out a couple here. There you are. All right, I laid out a couple. I've got one here and one there, and I used a piece of soapstone to do that. You can probably just see your pencil just fine. You could use a Sharpie. Silver Sharpie works really good if you've got one of those. All right, so I'm gonna work from the center out. And what I need to do is I need to leave some material to do my twist. So let me bring you right over there. Can you see there's about a 1/2 inch, about a finger width right there, from the line to the top of my vise, all right? And so I'm gonna use a regular adjustable wrench, crescent wrench. This is actually a Craftsman wrench, but anyhow. So I'm going to put my wrench about a 1/2 inch above the line. So all in all, I have about 1 inch between my wrench and the top of my vise. Now this is the amazing part. Remember, we talked about hot rolled and cold rolled metal. So without heating this, I can simply turn my part, and these are quarter turns, so 90 degrees. If I went a little far, I can back it up. It's not a big deal. I can adjust it. There we go. Take that out of the vise. There's my twist. Right? So my line is essentially in the middle of that space. Now, when we do the ends, I can't do that because my twist is supposed to be 1 inch from the end. And if I twist it where I drill the hole, it's gonna break. And then I've got to start all over. So I've got to do some adjustment here. I just want to bury that hole that I drilled in the vise. See, it's right there. It's right there. Just want to bury that down in the jaws of my vise. So if I do that, then I'm guaranteed that it won't twist on the hole. I still want about 1 inch here, so I'll have to kind of adjust my spacing. You don't want the wrench on top of the vise when you twist it, because then essentially what you've done is you've created a shear and you'll rip it in 2 parts. So we don't want to do that. So it doesn't matter which way you turn, because we're doing 4 quarter turns. So right there you can see I'm turning like that, and there's my turn. Now I also need to bend. This piece also needs to bend, so before I take it out of the vise, I'm going to bend that over, and I forgot to bring a hammer, so let me go grab my hammer. There's my hammer. All right, so I'm going to put a little pressure up here, and I'm just going to tap this forward. It's approximately a 45-degree angle. You'll have to adjust it to fit your project as you go. But that's what's going on. Want to make sure that I can get a rivet through there. It elongated the hole a little bit, so I might have to clean that out when I install my rivet. But that's pretty much what I'm going for. Okay, now I need to do the same thing over here on the other half. So there's four bends. And that is your brace. Okay, the next piece I'm going to make is a ring. And this is pretty straightforward. This is using a lot of knowledge that you have from working with sheet metal, maybe, if you've used a slip roll before. There's a couple ways we could go about making a ring. I'm going to go with the slip roll. it's probably the easiest. Maybe a little bit taxing on the machine because this is 1/8 inch thick strap, 1/8 by half. I certainly don't need a 24-inch slip roll, and I don't need wiring grooves. So you could use either slip roll. Remember, we have two, and we only used one because only one has wiring grooves. I drilled the hole on each end, one there and one over here, because I knew where those go. There's two more holes where it matches up to the top and the brace, and I don't know where those are gonna land, and I quite honestly don't wanna calculate it, so I'm gonna drill those later. I think I can handle drilling a couple holes by hand. I'll just clamp it in a vise and use my hand drill with a 3/16 bit. All right, so let's set up our slip roll. Remember, this is not 24 gauge metal, so I need to check the thickness here in the upper and lower roll, and this is really tight. So let me lower that down a little bit. Remember, the upper and lower roll is what we set to the thickness of our material. All right there, that looks good. And now I'm simply gonna feed it through. And you'll notice that I don't need to go back and forth like I did because I don't have any bends on the end. So I'm gonna pick one direction and I'm just gonna crank in one direction. This would be really handy if I had a motor, but I don't. Just my other arm, that's my motor. Okay, here we go. When this comes out, I'm just gonna bring it around and feed it back in. Remember, you'll have to adjust the back rolls. You can see it's already starting to take shape. That's not flat anymore. And you certainly don't want to put a ring in the drill press. That's not going to work. So that's why I drilled the end holes first. It's a lot easier to do it when it's flat. Uh-oh. Now it's got my ring. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to lift the hatch is what I'm gonna do. Well, I'm not done yet. Notice I'm just cranking in one direction. I don't know if you guys can see that. We'll put you over here for a minute. And there's just a small end gap right there. So I'm almost touching. All right, well, I think I'm about done. You can see that my ends are touching right there, so I will loosen the back roll and take my ring off, and there it is. There's my ring, ready to install into my lamp bracket. All right, well, I guess we have one more part to make, and that's the top hook. Let's head over to the bender. All right, we're here at the bender, and we're gonna use this to make our top hook, or at least some of it. This is a pretty difficult setup, and there's probably more than one way to do it. However, this is the way that I've done it, and it's fairly successful, so this is what I'm gonna show you today. So when I'm starting out the top hook, I'm gonna install, I've got these pins here. These pins fit in these holes, and I could make dies of the center pin should always remain in the center hole. And so I'm gonna start here from hole number 1. So I've got an empty hole, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna start my first pin in hole number 3, and it doesn't matter which one of these, they're just bars of steel that fit securely in the holes of this bender. So I'm in hole 3, and I'm gonna put the next pin in hole number 4. All right? So then I'm gonna set my metal, and by the way, you might want to start with this part because this is the, you need a piece longer than the 10 inches that the plans recommend. If you cut your piece to 10 inches, then you come over here and try and do this, you're probably going to run out of metal because the bender needs a little bit of extra tab over here to hold on to. So I've got about an inch. Let me pull you around here. I've got about an inch of metal sticking out, and I'm going to bring the handle. Here's the handle. I'm going to bring the handle around the machine. As it comes around, makes contact right here. So I've got about an inch of metal sticking out past my pins right there. And I'm going to pull on. I want this metal to stay flat, horizontal in the bender, so it's all the way down on the bottom. And I'm going to pull. Right here you can see how it's bending around the pin. And it's going to do that for a while until it slips off. So if you don't have any extra here, it's nothing for the bender to grab. So let's bring you around here. Right there. Let's see if you guys can see that. Right there. See how my bender's going to slip off the tab right there? Okay, so now it doesn't have it anymore. I can back up, but it's not gonna grab. It's just gonna slip off right here. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back up. Notice I brought my piece with me, right? I was over here. So I'm gonna bring everything around until I can get to this 5th hole. So I'm gonna use holes 3, 4, and now that 3rd pin is gonna go in hole number 5. So there it is. And now this is going to hold my metal. Bring you guys right in here. See what's going on. See, it's going to hold the metal so that I can close this hook. I just want to bring them parallel. I don't want to close it up totally. I'm supposed to be making a hook, not a ring. So I got to leave it parallel. What do you think? Oh, I got my pin. I guess I got one a little too far. There we go. A little too far. I probably need to back this out a little bit so I grab my pin. That's okay. All right, there's my hook. Okay, so I adjusted my hook a little bit. You know, that's the easiest thing about this project is it's wrought metal. It's all hot rolled metal, so I can adjust it cold by simply grabbing my adjustable wrench, kind of like I did the twist, and just lift up on it a little bit. It's not a big deal. So I did bring the pin over, by the way, and what that's going to do is that's going to tell me where I need to trim this tab back on the top. So adjacent to the side of this pin, or tangent I believe they say, I'm going to trim that right there. Okay, and I can trim that with, I can't go back to the shear because that would shear everything, but I could trim it with a hacksaw or I could trim it with a cutoff wheel. Just make sure you don't cut through both parts with your cutoff wheel. You just want to cut that top layer. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back with you guys. Well, that was a lot of work. All right, so I got this trimmed off. There's my hacksaw over there. I got this trimmed off with a hacksaw, and now I should be just tangent to the top of that pin, right? So it's all level. And I'm going to set that down in my vise. And I'm going to leave the pin in there so that if I close it with my vise, I don't smash my curl or my hook. Not a curl, a hook. All right, so that's what I want to do. And now, with my hammer, This is level on the top right here. So that means that this will bend 90. I want to bend this down right here with my hammer. So I'll put a little pressure on it. Let's get you in a better spot. How about over here? There we go. Put a little pressure on it. And I'm just going to tap with my hammer. Just like that. So now I'm starting to make my top hook. I can take my pin out and go return it over to the bender. This would be a really good time to go to the drill press, because now I can measure from here and drill my 2 holes, and I've got 2 more holes to drill, and I've got to turn a 90. Now, we just turned a 90 right here, so I think you can figure out how to turn this 90 over here. All right? Good luck. That's all the parts to the project: drilling, riveting, making the top hook, the ring, and twisting the brace. Good luck.